Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Stay Connected webinar. We are very happy that we have Ranae Aspen joining us today to talk about a very important topic and to share some great resources and an exciting grant opportunity with all of you. I'm Kim Larson, representing the Get Connected Conference Planning Committee, and it's my pleasure to welcome you and thank you for joining us today. Ranae, I am going to let you tell a little bit about your work and I'll get your PowerPoint started.
All right. Well, I'm Ranae Aspen. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate any opportunity to share with everyone what I'm doing. So I am the statewide youth tobacco specialist. This was typically something housed within DHHS, and in 2020 or thereabouts, CDC saw that vaping was going to be a real critical issue and had asked that everyone have a dedicated youth position. And so that is how the partnership between DHHS, Tobacco Free Nebraska, and Nebraska Department of Ed was formed. I came on board in December, and my main charge right now is to make sure that I have resources for schools and really any entity working with youth to help with youth tobacco prevention and cessation. So I'm like a clearinghouse of resources for the adult side, and then for the youth side, really encouraging them to take the charge to take down big tobacco. So other than that, I think we can get started.
I'm going to share my screen, and I saw there was a video in there. Do you want me to share with sound, or are we going to?
If we can share with sound and that would work, that would be great.
Okay, I'm going to give it a try.
And I should tell everybody too, if my voice happens to crack, I have been very busy today talking with over 400 students here at the Empower conference in Bellevue. So if it feels like I'm not great with my speaking abilities today, it's because I've done a lot of talking. My husband's very excited because I said, I'm not going to want to talk for 2 days. So, ooh. All right, so we'll get started. I want to talk today then about mini grants and also just how we can connect throughout the state so we can reduce tobacco intake overall. So if you want to share the next slide.
I am not sure if you are you seeing the full screen slides or?
No, it needs to go in slide presentation mode.
I'm seeing it. I think I'm just sharing the wrong screen. So let me start again. Okay.
There, perfect.
And okay.
And I apologize. It looks like I did not change my slide here. I've done this presentation for FCCLA. So really, this presentation is geared for anyone working with youth. So I want to make that clear, and I apologize for that oversight. And there's my contact information. And then if you want to go to
one more time and make sure I got the sound. Okay, I did.
Excellent.
I think we're all set.
All right. So there's my contact information if you want to go to the next slide. All right, so I'm with the Office of Coordinated Student Support Services. I'm kind of like a glittery sandwich because I'm in between Nebraska Department of Education and Tobacco Free Nebraska. And hopefully together we can see some real results in reducing the amount and the age of which students would try tobacco products. So again, in 2020, the CDC recognized that vaping was going to be a huge emerging issue, and any agency receiving tobacco funding from the CDC was ordered to dedicate funds for a youth tobacco prevention position. So through a partnership with Tobacco Free Nebraska and the Department of Education, Nebraska now has a statewide youth tobacco specialist housed through Nebraska Department of Education. And then the next slide. So we're going to talk today about why is youth tobacco prevention in Nebraska nationwide important. We'll talk about Nebraska data and national data. What are e-cigarettes? And we don't want to forget about other tobacco products. We'll talk about some resources for tobacco prevention, and then how No Limits Nebraska mini grants can connect to after school clubs, and again, during the day in school settings, just a variety of ways that these can be very helpful. Next slide. So Nebraska and national data. We'll look at Nebraska first. So this was in 2021. This is the YRBS data that students 8th, 10th, 12th grade, I believe, take. 23% of students reported using some type of tobacco. 48% of students who reported using tobacco have tried to quit. And 53% of our students who felt sad or hopeless have tried vape products versus 23% of our happier students. And the QR code will take you directly to the rest of the breakdown of the YRBS at-risk survey. Next slide. As far as national data, this comes from 2022. More than 2.5 million high school and middle school students currently use e-cigarettes. More than 1 in 4 use them daily. The most common used type of disposable are disposables, and almost 85% use flavored e-cigarettes. They're very popular. So electronic nicotine delivery system, you may hear them called INS product. And it's just an ongoing concern. By the way, there are no labels on vapes that tell you what all is in them as well. So I think that's a worthy note. Next slide. These are the components of an e-cigarette. So they have a battery, a heater, an atomizer, cartridge tank, and a microprocessor. One of the things that has been intriguing is that there really is not a policy per se, either nationally or statewide, that tells us how to properly dispose of them. So that's kind of interesting. The batteries can cause a lot of problems. They can explode and do lots of damage. Next slide. So 81% of kids who ever used tobacco products started with a flavored product. 99% of e-cigarettes sold in 2015 contained nicotine. A worthy note is that Juul had been caught doing some really unscrupulous things with advertising and how they were targeting youth. And they were one of the first ones that had the fruit flavored kinds of things put in vapes. They no longer can have those products being sold here in Nebraska. We are part of a Juul settlement. Over the next 5 years, Nebraska will receive $8 million in compensation for the Juul settlement. And we did go through the first round of legislature, and 1 million was allocated. I believe it's a 2-year term. For more specific questions, reach out to me, and I can also connect you with our residential specialist, Jeff. He would be happy to go through some of those things, I'm sure, via email. So you can see we've got e-liquid that looks like Ready Whip, which is a food product. We have an e-liquid that looks like Lifesavers. There are some that look like juice boxes. So my favorite, Lucky Charms. Just unreal the amount of kinds of things they're doing. I have noted, however, that there are workarounds. While Juul has been put to a halt, we have had a report of some vape shops that are actually injecting the pods with fruit flavors. I have a lot of questions about that. I'm probably not even sure whether it's juice or exactly what it is to flavor it. Next slide. All right, before we click further, Kim, this is one of those that it will tell us the answers. Take just a moment. There should be 5 of these items that are vape, and see how close you get. All right, hopefully that was enough time. Kim, if you want to just start clicking, there should be 5 red circles that appear. B, C, G, I, and J. What I will tell you is that we are always on the lookout for things that they're making look like common, ordinary, everyday items and turning them into vapes. I know that not long ago on social media, they have some that look like old-fashioned highlighters. And our next couple of slides will really make you stand up and take notice. I would not be surprised if we saw something that looked like D, because that is also a highlighter. Got a pink highlighter, a green highlighter, and a yellow in it. Who knows? That could definitely end up in the definition of a vape. All right, next slide. These are illegal vapes that resemble characters, school supplies, toys, and drinks. That QR code will take you to the website that I received these from. So you've got one that looks like Mario Brothers. There are toys that look like cameras, SpongeBob, things that look like Dunkin' Donut, and then the highlighter, and then some cute little bear toys. So it just seems like for everything that we put into place, there's a workaround, and people are trying to sell things to entice kids at earlier and earlier ages to begin vaping. Next slide. So I put together, these were things for after school club resources, but again, these are things that can be very helpful for anyone who may be working with youth. And I think the next slide is our video, Kim.
Is that a vape? I see some of your friends are vaping, and you're vaping. Wouldn't you be happier if you didn't? Not the best argument. He knows that it's not safe for him to vape. Just needs a nudge from someone he trusts. I know you have a lot going on.
Getting addicted to nicotine is the last thing you need.
Step up for your students. Talk to them about vaping. Visit cdc.gov/vaping for more information.
There is a lot of content on the Empower CDC site that's very much worth your time in taking a look at. Thought that was a very good depiction of how adults can have some conversations with kids and really show that they're caring about their well-being. Next slide.
Is that a vape?
All right, these are some tools and free resources. Catch My Breath, it's a peer-reviewed, evidence-based program. It can be used in a variety of settings, including after school. Take Down Tobacco is campaign for tobacco-free kids. This is really an interesting resource because not only does it have events and some curriculum included in it, but also a lot of very research things. So if you're research-oriented, that's worth your time taking a look at. Stanford Medicine. This is a prevention toolkit. It's theory-based curriculum for educators, parents, and middle school, high school students. Next slide. These are some specific Nebraska resources. We have Tobacco-Free Nebraska, e-cigarette and vaping, and the Nebraska Tobacco-Free School Kit. Next slide. We also have Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, and this is through the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services. That QR code will take you there. And then No Limits Nebraska. And again, my apologies, I did not see that I needed to switch this up. The QR code you will want for my information is the No Limits one. The bottom one is no longer up and running. On No Limits, I believe it's on the top right-hand side, there are more resources. And there's also even more organizations that I've cited there that can help you with tips and tricks for youth tobacco prevention. Next slide. So what I am doing this year with direct education, regional train the trainer sessions statewide for any staff working with tobacco prevention and restorative discipline for students who have violated school tobacco policy. So in other words, rather than looking at suspension, trying to get down to the root of the problem and doing some things with tobacco prevention and cessation would be a great alternative to more of the punitive punishment that we're seeing. And I would be happy to do that via a Zoom, or we could also work on doing some trainings throughout the state and have those be face-to-face. The big push right now is for mini grants. I have $250 for one tobacco prevention event and $500, and I apologize, there is another mistake for two. We've reduced that to two. And these are student-led tobacco prevention events. Small amount of evaluation at the end will be required. We do ask that youth have an adult sponsor. Basically, they will serve to make sure kids are staying on task, making sure the monies are being spent appropriately for those tobacco events. Next slide. All right, so this is the ins and outs then of the mini grants. And again, these are for any group, not just after school clubs. There are 3 different areas. There's cigarette butt and e-cigarette cleanup. That's looking at more of the environmental kinds of things. Sugar-coated lies. Very interesting if you sit and take note of all of the references with tobacco, whether it's a movie that you're watching. I am a fan of Bruno Mars. I have noted that there's always either smoking or vaping in his videos, which makes me really sad. So kids are seeing a lot of this. So that will kind of be putting the spotlight on that, and that we're not buying into their lies. Be your own voice. That would be for youth who perhaps want to take a deep dive into policy and what we can do to prevent tobacco use among Nebraska youth. Next slide. So grant details made simple. Number 1, organize events to draw public awareness to the impact of youth and the use of tobacco products. So again, $250 for one tobacco prevention event and public service announcement, or $500 for 2 of them. Every event will include a public service announcement. This can be a slide presentation, a video, a podcast, digital billboard for your community in the state of Nebraska. Use your imagination because there are no limits. Again, cannot stress enough, these are to be youth-led, and then adult sponsor is required. And then always you can reach out for guidance to be sure you're following best practices of tobacco prevention with your event and with your public service announcements. Next slide. So the planning has been made easy. As a group, you select activities that best fit your school and your community that are included in the grant packet. These slides will be sent out, and those links will take you to the grant packet. And there's a planning guide on page 4. Fit activities into the course of the school year, keeping in mind your activities and evaluations must be submitted by April 12th, 2024. You may want to align activities with national dates. National Great American Smokeout Day is coming up. It's the 3rd Thursday in November. Another thought that crosses my mind is while Earth Day is in April, you could certainly designate Earth Day to be whenever you would like it to be and coincide that with a tobacco prevention activity. We also provide a rubric that will be used to evaluate applications, and it's also a great tool to help you plan your project. Next slide. So overview of the topics to choose from, decide on a topic, and fill out a simple application and some important dates to keep in mind. Next slide. So example 1, research laws, guidance, and regulations for clean air. We do have a Clean Air Act here in Nebraska. So for an example, if you have a student inside your school that is vaping, that is also included now in that Clean Air Act. Example 2, looking at research current policies and suggest changes to those policies. Example 3 would be smokeless tobacco, e-cigarette vapes, and this is all under that cigarette butt and e-cigarette cleanup. And again, they're just examples. Sugar-coated lies, example 1 would be public policy concerning flavored tobacco. Right now at the national level, there are some things happening with that, and you can tune into that and make suggestions as to what needs to happen. Example 2 would be looking at tobacco use in media. And example 3 is how big tobacco targets teens and even younger kids. The last one is be your own voice to create a tobacco-free Nebraska. Example 1, you could investigate current tobacco policy, legal age, and taxes. Example 2 is you could research current policies and suggest changes. Example 3, interview students on e-cigarettes and other tobacco product use. I think this would be really interesting to think about how then can we help teens stop using vapes. Find out, do you like using vapes? What are the pros? What are the cons? And really get an idea from their own peers. Next slide. So the adult sponsor role, ensure that youth fill out the application and the evaluation forms, receive the grant award paperwork and share with necessary staff in your building. Pretty simple. Spending funds to support many grant activities and filling out necessary forms for reimbursement. And I guarantee those are going to be very, very small and minimalized. And then overseeing youth during tobacco prevention activities. One great idea that I had put, for an example, in the packet of things that they could consider doing, it could be as simple as putting tobacco facts on a label for a popcorn bag and discussing that, or having patrons to come up and ask students questions about what the fact is on their tobacco, on their bag of popcorn. And then maybe in conjunction with your concession stand, the next time they go to a sporting event, they could get a free bag of popcorn. So that would be one example. It can be as simple as that. And next slide. The youth role, and that really the popcorn bag would have been for the youth. Hopefully you got that. I got ahead of myself. The youth role, take the lead in filling out the grant application, plan tobacco prevention activities, as well as the public service announcement, and then following up with the final evaluation and success story. Next slide. And that will take you directly to the application itself. And I think that's the last slide. If you want to go to the next one. These are the important dates. So I rolled them out on the 18th. They close the 31st. I will be transparent with this group that I feel strongly we are going to probably extend those into November. So more information to come on that. I would like to wrap them up by April 12th so that we have success stories and evaluations before the end of the school year. I will also throw into this to be on the lookout mid to the later part of January. I will also be rolling out applications for a statewide youth leadership team. And that group of diverse youth throughout the state of Nebraska will be the ones that will begin to bring back the Takedown Tobacco Day, which had been going on for several years. So it's a legislature day down in Nebraska. I also perceive that with all the changes that we've experienced through COVID, that some of those things may in fact be hybrid, and we will be able to zoom in throughout the state youth that want to participate and speak with their leadership team in Lincoln, our legislatures and senators, to talk to them about their experiences with tobacco. So all kinds of exciting things are happening at No Limits Nebraska. And the next slide, I would just like to take the opportunity then to open it up for any questions you might have for me.
I have a question, Ranae. Are in your resource packets or the resources that are available, are there suggestions for developing youth leadership and helping them take the lead in planning an event? Or could
Yes,
you
there
help
will be
people?
lots. Yep, there will be lots of tips and tricks in those packets that you'll find, as well as I am making myself available. I would be more than happy to walk through this. I'm excited because I really want this to be very innovative. I want the kids to be creative. I did have a mini takedown tobacco day with Grand Island Northwest, and those kids were absolutely amazing at some of the things that they came up with. One young lady actually did a radio spot, and I think that that was played probably 2 or 3 times. So, you know, let them take the lead and they will go far. It's just amazing. It was amazing to watch them be creative. And I really seriously wished I would have had more than just one day, because I think there would have been a lot of learning to have happened just peer to peer.
Does anybody else have a question? I have a comment. I'm just shocked at the products they're putting out that are intended to draw youth participation or
Yeah, it's,
use. I had no
you know,
idea.
you just can't hardly even keep up, you know. Um, Back in my high school days, there were probably 3, maybe 4 major tobacco brands, and now it's everywhere, and all kinds of things just continue to pop up that we have to deal with. So lots of heavy things. This is kind of a bummer note to bringing up at the end of this, but the other day, it's just affecting so many people. The other day I went and had my teeth cleaned, and there was a new gal, and she said my mother died of pneumonia after she asked me what I did for a living. And I told her, she said, my mom died of pneumonia at age 58 in June. I just received the death certificate and it said tobacco use. So she questioned her mother's best friend, and she said, well, she really didn't want you and your sisters to know this, but she'd been vaping, as far as she knew, for about 6 months. And in that 6-month time frame, it caused that much damage to her lungs. So we're also on the very infancy stage of this. I really, after that, I thought I had some answers, but I have a lot of questions now. I really don't think we have the knowledge of what all of that does to our health and to our bodies and to our lungs. So it's stories like that that make me understand how critical it is that we've got to catch the younger generation. And that's who the big tobacco companies are trying to get at, is to hook them when they're really young. So hopefully they'll take the charge.
Your work's really important. Thank you so much for all you're doing to preserve the health of our young people and adults.
Yes, and I do appreciate you having me today.
If you do extend that mini grant deadline, will you be sure and let us know? Because I can help
definitely will.
get the word out about that.
Yes, I definitely will. And please, if there's any questions, reach out to me.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and your work getting ready for this, and your work as you are complete your statewide youth tobacco specialist responsibilities.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you to those of you who joined us today, and we'll see you back the first Thursday of November.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye. Too.
Kim, if you can hold on.